Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome to Chasing the Gold for January 11th, 2023. I am JD Duran, and joining me once again is the great Brian Rowe. Brian, how we doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. The last time we talked here with Chasing the Gold anyway, because spoiler alert, I joined Brian on his podcast, which will be coming out in about a month or so. But the last time you and I talked here on Chasing the Gold, we had talked about the award season, kind of broadly speaking, the year of film in 2022, and kind of what led up to where we were at when we got together last week. Mm-hmm. And now here we are, and the Golden Globes happened last night as we are recording this. And then, of course, earlier today, we get the DGA and the SAG nominations also came out. So we need to talk about it.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's so much more to talk about since the last time we got together. And that is the thing this time of year, right? You can have a conversation 1 minute and then the next day there's so much more to talk about as things are wrapping up for 2022. Let's start off with the Golden Globes. Before we get into any of the categories specifically, what did you think about the show on the whole? This is the first time they've been broadcast since, 2020? And there's, of course, all of the controversy surrounding the Globes, which was addressed in that opening monologue a little bit. What did you think of the Globes this year?
Yeah, so we didn't get it last year. I believe last year it was live tweeting. Like, that was how we learned who won at the Globes.
It was strange.
So the last televised ceremony was in early 2021. Mm-hmm. And that was that was like a weird show because they were really socially distanced, like all around the room, and I think there were feeds like in different parts of the country. And so this was like this was like the first regular Globes ceremony since 2020. And I had a good time. I had some friends over. We watched it, and I was really happy with a lot of the wins. I always like at least a couple big surprises at the show, and I feel like we got two of them. One was in foreign film. I feel like the movie that was on most predictors number 5, like the bottom, like that's the one that won over Decision to Leave and Argentina in 1985. And then I think
that was so funny too, because my wife was watching with me and she doesn't follow film really at all, like we do, of course. And so I was explaining to her as we were leading up to that category, the nominees, and they're like 4 of those 5, I think, are really strong. And I had verbalized to her before they announced the winner, like, Argentina 1985 is not going to win here. And it's probably the weakest. I do like the film. I think it is good, but I think it's the weakest of that crop. And it's not going to win. And then they go on to announce it. And I'm like, never mind. What do I know?
Well, it's weird because they announced RRR as the winner of Best Original Song. And then I thought, well, that movie has a lot of buzz the last few months. I'm like, that's probably going to win. It's going to be that or All Quiet on the Western Front. The dark horse is probably Decision to Leave. So that was just like, what?
I think the World Cup had a lot to do with that one.
Yeah.
I would think.
And most of the categories, I feel like the winner was expected. But I do think Angela Bassett was kind of a surprise for supporting actress.
Yeah,
I would have put her in third behind Carrie Condon and Jamie Lee Curtis because it's a Marvel movie. I just was like, I don't think they're going to go for a Marvel movie acting win. But we all love Angela Bassett. She's extraordinary. Does a great job in the movie. So now I'm thinking, she just got the SAG nomination. I'm like, she's might be the first Marvel movie actor to get an Oscar nomination, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, is that outside of tech, and I don't even know if they've won major awards even in the craft, and obviously they've been nominated several times before, but that has to be the first significant win from anything regarding Marvel, unless you want to include just the nomination for that original Black Panther.
Yeah.
But as far as wins go, that's got to be the best one so far, right?
Yeah, I feel like the only other movie that's gotten some big nominations was the first Black Panther, which obviously got a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars and won 3 technical awards that night. But no nominations in acting for the first Black Panther. Although, so I want to say 2 or 3 actors from that movie were kind of being talked about as maybe not, and then it didn't happen. And that movie was super popular. It won Best Ensemble at SAG in 2019. Black Panther won that.
Okay.
So that was probably its biggest, like Marvel's biggest prize for actors was that 4 years ago. And so I just didn't think there was enough enthusiasm for the movie overall, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And it was the only major nomination, right, at the Golden Globes. I was like,
I believe
so I was like,
yeah,
I think there's more enthusiasm for Banshees and Everything Everywhere. I was like, I think it's a cool nomination, but that's it. And then she wins. And I was like, oh, cool. And I think she was even taken aback when she took out her phone. When she read off her speech on her phone, I was like, that's like I made a video about her in September, and there's a lot of great videos of her winning awards, and she's never reading off of something. Like she always walks up there and I was kind of surprised to see her like reading off a phone.
Yeah,
like, I don't think she expected it.
And that was another conversation I had with my wife last night too, because she wasn't the only one. Like many of the winners had their phones up there. And that's just the way it is now, right? The technology is what it is now.
Yeah.
And it's just so socially acceptable, for better or worse, that who needs a note card now? Just go up there with your phone and read it off your notes on your phone.
I miss Patricia Arquette Boyhood award season where she always had that big paper with her. That was like
yeah.
But overall the show, I was pretty happy with it. And I mean, it went long. I mean, it was like 3.5 hours. It could have been shortened a little bit, but most of the speeches were pretty solid. And I loved Ke Kwan and Michelle Yeoh's. Both of their speeches were fantastic. I loved when Michelle Yeoh said, "Shut up, please." I could kick your ass. Great. Like that was cool. I'm like, why are they playing her off? Like this is a big moment for her, and she's like been talking for 45 seconds. I'm like, give her a chance. This is Best Actress. Like, give her a chance to talk.
Yeah, so. I hear you on that, and I do want to talk about those categories here.
Yeah,
in a moment. As far as the overall show goes, it's obviously a touchy subject with a lot of people, given the history of the Hollywood foreign press.
Yeah.
And it was touched upon. Jared Carmichael did bring it up in that opening monologue. And say what you will about the changes they've made. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe it's the right step forward. Wherever you land on that spectrum. The last thing he said, I think, was really important in that regardless of whatever strides they made themselves internally as far as moving the needle forward for us to expand our horizons, to add diversity, again, you can think of that what you will, but we are here tonight to celebrate these artists. And that is the spirit of what we're going to do going forward. I think that was really important because that's what award season should be about. And, there's another rabbit hole we can get into and how we've turned art into sports. And I'm very vocal about that with how I feel about that. But the spirit of what that night should be, the spirit of the Oscars is to celebrate. And I think that was a really poignant line from Jared Carmichael to note that, look, we're not here to hold hands with the Hollywood foreign press. We are here to celebrate these artists. That's why I'm here. And I thought that really set the foundation very well moving forward, that it didn't have to be about the Hollywood foreign press or the history of them and what they've done, but it's about everyone here tonight in this room. And getting to celebrate them. And I think that did lighten the mood a little bit. And then as everyone came on stage, that has to be one of the funniest award shows I've seen in some time. There was a lot of humor to be had that I thought was really good. Of course, when you give all of these these artists alcohol and
Booze,
no
yeah.
food, it certainly lends itself to some levity for sure.
Mhm.
And that did make it enjoyable. It also helped. I thought that there was a lot of good winners, at least on the film front.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the TV, but aside from the upset from Argentina 1985, some really great winners. I really can't complain. And it starts off impeccably with Ke Huy Quan winning there for Best Supporting Actor. And that speech, oh my God, he won the Oscar as soon as he got up on stage.
I
He
mean,
won that
I
Oscar
don't
with that
want to
speech.
think that he had been prepping that speech for weeks and was like knowing in his mind, like, I might win this. If I do, I got to give the speech of my life because then that will take me to SAG and the Oscars. But it did feel so genuine. It was one of the
did.
great speeches of the night. He was in tears.
It was
I loved
so
him
sincere.
thanking Steven
Yeah.
Spielberg, who was in the
Oh,
room.
right there. What a moment.
Indiana
Yeah.
Jones and the Temple of Doom. That was cool. Like, you know, I love
Yeah.
when there's a callback to a movie from like 30, 40 years ago or something. That's always really cool.
And Spielberg was the one that kind of launched him, right? I mean, it was that, and then a year
And the
later,
Goonies.
Goonies.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, he certainly owes a lot to Spielberg for sure. And then to have that level of poetry that Spielberg is there, and funny enough, he's there for a film that is all about his process and getting him to where he is today.
Yeah.
So there's poetry upon poetry and how all of that plays out.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a really touching moment. And the speech itself was just it was impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it was like for you. I was sobbing the entire time. And now I can't even watch him or listen to him without getting emotional. Like earlier today, I was watching him on that, what was it, the Hollywood Reporter, that Actors Roundtable they have, and he was talking about his story a little bit more. And it wasn't like inherently emotional in that roundtable, but thinking about last night and just projecting that onto this video, it's like I can't watch this. I'm just gonna lose it. So and I'm
Yeah.
sure many voters are feeling the same way.
I thought going into this, I thought the only one he might lose is the Globe. I was thinking Brendan Gleeson had a shot for Banshees, but
Makes sense,
now I'm like, I think that race is over.
That's pretty locked up.
I don't
Yeah.
I think he's one of those actors. We get at least one or two every season who's just going to win everything. And I think he's one of those.
Yeah.
Ke Huy Quan.
Well, moving on to his co-star, I think the lead acting categories got really interesting.
Especially with SAG.
Yeah,
nomination.
absolutely. Kate Blanchett was not there last night, but we know the prowess of her. We know what the Academy thinks of her.
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh, though, she has a similar-ish narrative behind her. First nomination at the Globes, first win. Going into the Oscars, she's never won there either. You know, and we talked about this the last time slightly, but then she gives that speech, and similarly, I think she absolutely nailed it. An incredible speech. You mentioned that moment of humor when she tells the piano player not only to stop it, but I could beat you up.
Yeah.
Great line. I do love that. So I think she also gives a great speech, and now all of a sudden, I just feel like that race is, I don't know. Did it change your mind at all as far as, is it Blanchett or now Michelle Yeoh?
I mean, it's hard to like change your mind or anything after the Globes because sometimes people win at the Globes and then they're not even nominated at the Oscar. Like, you never know. I've been feeling for a while like things were going to be turning towards Michelle Yeoh's direction just because, especially when it comes to the Oscars, Kate Blanchett already has two.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be any. I mean, I think the one case where that happened with Frances McDormand winning for Nomadland, a third Best Actress Oscar, that year, that season, that Best Actress was up for grabs. Different people were winning at every ceremony. Nobody really knew who was a front runner there. So that kind of makes sense in the long run. But I feel like there's so much passion for Michelle Yeoh and the film she's in. And Tar is a little bit of a colder movie. It's not going to appeal to everybody in the Academy.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people might be on the fence, but say, well, Kate Blanchett already has two. And Michelle Yeoh has never been nominated before, and she kicks ass in this movie. It's amazing. So I've been feeling like Michelle Yeoh will win at SAG and give another awesome speech. And then it might be close, but I'm right now feeling that Michelle Yeoh wins Best Actress at the Oscars, and it's going to be a moment. Right?
Okay.
Because very few people of color have won Best Actress.
Yeah.
In almost 100 years.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be, I think people will be thinking that too.
Yeah. And this is as good of year as any. I do feel like the stars have aligned for that to happen. The performance is excellent, of course. Blanchett's won, as you noted. Do they want to give her a third? And it is deserving. I do want to reiterate that. And we mentioned that last time. Like, Cate Blanchett gives a powerhouse performance.
She's one of her best.
She's so commanding.
Might be her best performance.
You can
on film.
make that argument for sure. And I know, like, our great friend Ryan McQuaid, who usually does a lot of these Chasing the Gold episodes, he's very much in the camp of, no, this is Blanchett's to lose still. Like, he doesn't give the ideal credence that Michelle Yeoh is in this race. And maybe he's right. At the end of the day, that could very well be true. I don't know, and I'm certainly not I don't have any sort of insight into this world like you or Ryan does, but I just can't fathom that you have one actress that's won before, another that hasn't. They're both great performances, and then you watch that speech last night, and it's like, yeah, I'd like to see that at the Oscars. Of course I would. I mean, so I don't know. I just something to, I guess, think about more as we go. And then moving into the Best Actor category. Now, of course, that race has always come down to Austin Butler and Colin Farrell. And then they both win, as we all mostly expected. And then they both give great speeches as well, which I think just heightens that. I hate to use rivalry or the race. And it's also interesting going back to that same Hollywood Reporter roundtable, because not only were both of them in it, they sat next to each other and were so friendly. Like it's like they became friends throughout that entire conversation. So there's certainly no personal rivalry there. But in terms of the race, it's going to come down to those two. They both nailed their speeches last night. Colin Farrell, I thought, was really funny as well. You know, doing the whole let's leave the music out of this whole shebang. And then Austin Butler was very endearing and gave a good speech. So I don't know. That race just, I think, got more captivating.
Yeah, I wouldn't count Brendan Fraser out yet. Like I saw that movie a couple weeks ago. That is a really stunning performance, and so I wouldn't count it out.
I agree.
I think he's a dark horse for SAG. Like, I think Brendan Fraser, because I feel like if you're looking for like the biggest, boldest performance of the three, like that's the one you vote for. But and I just feel like Austin Butler's a little bit like, we don't really know him that well as an actor. He really I mean, I know he's been acting for many years, but for me at least, that was like the first thing I've ever seen him in. I think he's like in a bit part in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think he's got a small role.
Small role, yeah.
So for me, if it's not Fraser, I feel like Colin Farrell takes this all the way to Oscar. He's had such an extraordinary year. He's in 4 films. The Batman is very beloved. He's great in that.
Yeah.
He's been terrific for more than 20 years. So many great performances that deserved Oscar nominations, including In Bruges. They didn't get it for her. So I feel like if it's not Fraser, if he really just goes aside, I think Colin Farrell is going to take it. But SAG, for me, I don't know why. I've been thinking all day. I'm like, especially with Hong Chow getting in for the Whale in supporting actress, shows that there's there's a little enthusiasm for the movie beyond just Fraser. So I'm like, it might not just be between Farrell and Butler. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I guess my rebuttal to that would be, and I think you make a lot of great points. Austin Butler he does give an electric performance in Elvis. So separated in a microcosm, that is worth noting. And then he's doing a biopic, and the Academy loves themselves a biopic.
They like that.
Love it. And it's a much more attainable film and entertaining film. The Whale is a hard watch. It is going to turn off a lot of voters. It's already turned off a
But
lot
I
of
think actors,
cinephiles and audiences.
I think actors will take to it more than maybe a general academy.
And that's fair. And that's why I think you make a great point about SAG. I could certainly see him winning there for those reasons.
Yeah.
But including the entire voting academy,
Yeah.
will they go for the whale? That I don't know.
Mhm.
I would like Austin Butler makes much more sense to me just from a performative perspective. But yeah, if they are thinking about what you're saying in terms of he's young, he'll have more chances, and how many times have we seen that played out? You know, there's so much credence to that idea. I could absolutely see them. And maybe at the end of the day, this is all mute because Colin Farrell gives a great performance in Banshees and in After Yang and in Batman, a career year. He's paid his dues. It's his time. It's his time to win one of those statues. Like I feel like every one of these narrative threads we've been talking about fits Colin Farrell. He's right there. So maybe this isn't a debate. Like everyone's just going to vote for Colin Farrell, and we're just wasting air here. I mean, maybe that's
I
all
think
that
if
it
I
is.
had to predict the Oscar right now before the nominations have even come out, I would say Colin Farrell. Like I think that's the most likely winner. As you say with Butler, he is young, and it's like, well, he might have more opportunities. I mean, I always think Rami Malek wins for Bohemian Rhapsody a few years ago, and relatively younger guy, and he just kind of swept that category all the way to the Oscar. So it could happen again for Butler. It's a very popular movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It just seems it almost seems too easy, though. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like it's going to go that way. I'll be surprised if it's Butler at Critics' Choice, Butler at SAG, Butler at the Oscar. I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that Colin Farrell's the winner. I do agree with that, and I think he should win. That would absolutely be my vote. In fact, we just got done doing the In Session Film Awards on episode 516. Go check it out. It's everywhere you listen to podcasts. And spoiler alert, he was the winner for me for Best Actor, and not just for Banshees, but in After Yang as well. So that is the obvious choice. That kind of film with that kind of electricity, it just is their thing. It is the Academy's thing. So and he gave a great speech last night, which is part of it for me. Like I feel like that certainly didn't hurt his case. So I don't know. We'll see where things go.
Yeah, one negative for Farrell, I would argue, is that it is kind of a quiet performance, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of an interior performance he gives in Banshees. Whereas Butler and Elvis is a big performance, and he does a great job as, playing someone that we all know and love. So in that regard, I can kind of see what you're saying, that Butler does have possibility of winning there just because it's a flashier performance.
And we talked about that last time as well. And we certainly have talked about this countless times on the podcast over the years, that the Academy loves the flashy performances. Those internal introspective performances they don't typically go for, which is why After Yang has never been in the conversation, even though it should. And Banshees is very much that as well, especially because on the surface he's playing this very simple-minded guy who just wants to go hang out with his friend and drink at 2:00 in the afternoon. That's all he wants in life.
That's his goal.
That's his goal. And then his friend is like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I don't want to do that. And that's all the conflict is. So like on the surface, it doesn't seem as if he's doing he's not doing anything complicated, but underneath that simplicity is a ton of complexity. But that's not typically, to your point, what the Academy goes for. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting.
Well, McDormand won for Nomadland, and that's a very quiet performance. I mean, you never know. Yeah, it happens.
It certainly happens, but she's also been around a little bit more with the Academy. She's been nominated in one previously, so maybe that had something to do with it that year. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and Colin is just, he's got this in the bag. Who knows?
He might, yeah.
Let's talk about Papa Spielberg. Gotta love his win last night. Not really all that surprising, especially since they gave McDonough the win for screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get to the best picture wins. It was Banshees and it was The Fablemans, so they split director and writing. Makes sense to me. In hindsight, I do love the win. I love the speech from Papa Spielberg. Do you think that translates in a little over a month from now?
Boy, that like Spielberg, I thought in November was like going to win this. He hasn't won Best Director at the Oscars since Saving Private Ryan in '99. It's been a long time. He's made some great films since, and this is his most personal film. It's very good. It's on my top 10 of the year. It just feels right, but the movie's got some vulnerabilities. I haven't sensed like a whole lot of passion for it when I go online and when I hear, like, I feel like people are more passionate about other movies. And so but at the same time, I never doubted his win at the Golden Globes. That just felt like a Globes win to me. Spielberg for Best Director. Like people were saying it's going to go to Baz Luhrmann. I'm like, I don't think so. That felt right to me when they said his name. I was like, okay, I'm glad I stuck with my prediction. It was always going to be Spielberg.
But the Academy does love movies about movies, and that is a movie about movies, and it's about one of the best directors of all time. His personal, his personal childhood. Man, I could absolutely see the Academy eating that up, and especially because, as you noted, it's been quite a long time since Spielberg has been in this position.
Yeah,
at least in a very serious way.
Yeah, I mean, he was just in there for West Side Story, but he was never going to win for that.
He was never going to win, and right now he's very much up for that. He does get nominated as well for DGA earlier today. I don't know. I mean, let me ask you this as well, since we're on directors. So, of the DGA nominations, which included Spielberg and McDonough and Todd Field and the Daniels, but with the DGA, you also get Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick. Now, I don't have all of the stats. I feel like there's one floating out there that it's not always the 5. In fact, there's usually one that's kind of flip-flopped when it comes to the Oscars.
Yeah, I just read today that the last time it was 5 for 5 was like 2009. Like,
it's been a long time. And it makes sense to me that the one that misses here is Kosinski.
Yeah. I think Kosinski will miss, and they'll give that 5th slot to an international director of like All Quiet on the Western Front or RRR or Decision to Leave. I think one of those 3 directors gets that 5th slot.
Yep, absolutely. Edward Berger, this director, he's interesting because that's also a director that nobody really knows. Like, he comes out of nowhere with one of the best World War I movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I think
it's amazing.
I think it's incredible, but very deserving of that slot now versus something like Park Chan-wook, who, we know that name. People know that name. Maybe not mainstream America, but anyone that follows movies in a serious way certainly knows that name. So maybe that's what they go to. And Decision to Leave, say what you will about the film, he directs the hell out of that thing. It is really well directed. I could see him making it in as well. So I do think you're onto something there. But again, at the end of the day, does it even matter? Because is this Spielberg's to lose?
Yeah, right now I'm feeling like the only 2 people who could beat him are the Daniels. I think the Daniels need to win at Critics' Choice and a DGA. And then I'm going to say maybe they could take it over Spielberg. I think Spielberg can lose Critics' Choice to the Daniels. I feel like the Daniels could take that one. I think if Spielberg wins DGA, I think he's going to win the Oscar. But Daniels, like, for me, that's it. That's like the only other 2 who can beat him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I love Papa Spielberg. He's one of the best. We did a Steven Spielberg movie series on the podcast earlier this year, and it was one of the most rewarding exercises I've ever done as a critic. I mean, it was unbelievable. And for him to be at this point, I just feel like this is a moment that he's been waiting for 40 years. One of my favorite moments of last night, actually, at the Globes, and it was this subtle little reference, but he references Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Yeah.
which
And
I
E.T..
thought was incredible because on the show, when we reviewed The Fablemans back in October or whenever that came out, November, and one of the first things I said when we started talking about that movie is that this isn't the first time he's tackled this material. We have seen him do The Fablemans before, but not as overtly, not as directly. One of my favorite things about Close Encounters, that movie is all about, through allegory and symbolism, is really him wrestling with his parents' divorce. But it was somewhat unconsciously. There's that really famous clip of the interview he has with James Lipton when Lipton brings up the science of his father and the artistry of his mother. And his reaction is, oh, yeah, I didn't even realize I did that. But yeah, this is a movie about my parents.
I remember that clip.
Yeah. And so this, like, his childhood has been built into the DNA of all of his films. And then, yeah, there's something like E.T. AI is also The Fablemans, maybe even more consciously than something like Close Encounters. But The Fablemans is him tackling it as directly as he possibly can, obviously. So it does feel like he's been building to this for some time. And it was fun to hear him, and again, in a subtle way, speak to that last night. I thought that was really great. And I'd like to think that most of the Academy is thinking along those lines. And so maybe Best Director is locked up. Wouldn't surprise me.
I wouldn't say it's locked up right now, but it's looking like Spielberg will probably win the big prizes coming up here.
Yeah. But to your point, maybe the Daniels do surprise with a couple of wins leading up to the Oscars in early March. We shall see. Let's talk about continuing the trend of the Fablemans. Let's just get to the Best Picture win. So we had Banshees, we had the Fablemans. Not too much of a surprise, I don't think. I guess, what did you think about those wins? And does it truly come down to those two at the Oscars? Everything Everywhere at Once, though, I would imagine is still in play. Maybe Tar. What do you think?
Yeah, those are the two movies I predicted for Golden Globes. Those felt right to me. I know people were predicting like Top Gun Maverick for drama and Everything Everywhere All at Once for comedy musical. I have found in years past, Golden Globes usually go with a little bit more like conservative choice. Like they don't go for the flashiest, craziest, like a Babylon or something. Like I was thinking like they feel more like they'll go with Banshees and comedy. Even though I don't know if you can call that a comedy, but I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that. And then the Fablemans, I mean, it is kind of funny with the fingers. So, I mean, I guess there's some parts in it, but it's kind of a great medley of comedy and drama in Banshees.
Yeah, it's certainly both. Yeah,
but Fablemans felt like that's a movie that, and I think going into the Oscars too, one thing about Fablemans is that it might not have the greatest passion, but that's one everybody's gonna like. You know, I don't see anyone putting the Fablemans. Like out of 10 Best Picture nominees, I don't see anyone putting the Fablemans as number 10. Like I think even if you just think it's okay, it'll be like your number 4.
Yeah,
you know, might not be number 1.
Exactly. Yeah.
so those are the two I thought were going to win. I think when it comes to the Oscars and Best Picture, I think it's down to Fablemans, Banshees, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think those are the three.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
I think
seems to be the three.
I mean, we'll talk about SAG, but I think the main win there is not going to be Banshees or Fablemans. So it's kind of a three-way race right now for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah. I do agree that Everything Everywhere All at Once is very much in that conversation, even though it loses last night to the Banshees of Inisherin, and understandably so. And what's interesting from my perspective, and I guess a little bit of a spoiler alert if you haven't listened to our top 10 show yet, but the Fablemans, Banshees, and Everything, all three of those are in my top 5 of the year. So, like, I'm kind of loving this, but also unless it's the Fablemans, man, see, I don't know. Like, winning Best Picture comes with a cost, unless you're Moonlight or Parasite. I don't know, though. Like, if any one of those three wins, does it get the same kind of backlash? I don't know. And maybe that's a conversation for another day. I am a little bit concerned though, if I'm being honest.
I mean, I don't think general audiences are really taking to the Fablemans. Like at my job, I've asked people about it, and they've never heard of it. Like adults I work with at my job, they're like, "What's that?"
Yeah,
but you know what? Everyone's heard of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everyone knows that movie, and that movie was A24's big $100 million hit, and Fablemans severely underperformed at the box office. So that might play into it too. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. Any other category from the Globes you want to hit on?
Did we talk about supporting actress very much?
Oh no, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, we haven't got to that yet.
That's an interesting category this year. That's the one that's just like a headache, ceremony to ceremony. It might be a little bit clearer now with Angela Bassett's win. Yeah. I was thinking in the last 2 months that Carrie Condon was going to kind of take this category because she's so great in Banshees. That's kind of like the critical choice we can all get behind. Great performance, terrific film. But because I was like, I don't know, they're going to give it to a Marvel movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is really fun and amusing and Everything Everywhere. But I'm like, is that a winning performance? It's, she's in it very briefly. So I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like Stephanie Hsu, which as most people think is the stronger supporting actress performance in the movie. So Angela Bassett winning, I think she wins at SAG. I don't know about Critics' Choice. Right now, I think Carrie Condon takes it at Critics' Choice.
Yeah.
But then the Oscar is really up for grabs.
I think that I completely agree. I do wonder if Bassett's win here is just the Globes thing.
It could be.
Like, that wouldn't surprise me. It does feel very Globey, but I do think that's a deserved winner, even if she wouldn't have necessarily gotten my vote if I was a member. Because Carrie Condon is just on another level in Banshees. But Bassett is great. Like, I don't have an issue with that win at all. I just don't know if it translates. That
one scene Bassett has, it was in the trailer. It played even better when I saw the full movie in November. Like, sometimes all it takes is one amazing
and maybe
scene.
That's all it is. I do love the performance beyond that. There's a couple of great interactions she has with other characters that aren't Oscar-y kind of clips. But I mean, to your point though, maybe that's all that voters needed to see was that one moment of her talking about her son and being cathartic, and it's great. I mean, it's truly fantastic. So I don't know, that I am very intrigued. We've talked about some of these other categories and how it comes down to, there's like a 2-horse race in a lot of them. And this one is... And
I floated one thing on Twitter today, and I keep thinking about it because, as we'll talk about with SAG, Michelle Williams did not show up at SAG and lead actress. Like, could Michelle Williams get nominated at the Oscars in supporting actress? Could that happen?
But isn't she campaigning as lead though? Is that even possible?
I have looked into it. It is possible. At the Oscars, they put you where they want.
Wherever they want.
It's not like it can only be this or that. Like, they put you where... That's how Kate Winslet was nominated for Best Actress for The Reader, not supporting actress. All the voters decided we're going to put this in lead, not supporting.
Interesting.
So I just floated that today because I've always thought it should be supporting.
Yeah.
Some people disagree with that.
This is what I love about talking with Brian. He teaches me things that I did not know before. So I mean,
it doesn't happen almost now. I mean, it's unlikely, but I'm always like, if Viola Davis can win supporting actress for Fences for a longer performance in a shorter running time movie, Fences, like, I feel like, and with Paul Dano getting in it at many ceremonies in supporting actor as the father, he's in a lot of the movie. Kind of makes sense to me that enough people might put Michelle Williams into supporting, but maybe that I'm just going crazy and that's not going to happen.
I mean, I don't foresee that happening either, but that would be an awesome surprise because I think we all collectively agree it is a supporting performance. But I don't know. Campaigning, and who made that decision? Because how many times have we talked about, off mic and on mic, about how wide open this supporting actress category is, and she's nowhere to be found. It feels like she would absolutely be nominated at the very least if that's where she campaigned. maybe even sweeping or winning a lot of these. But
We'll never
don't
know.
know.
I think
Weird.
if she had just pushed hard for supporting actors, she'd just sweep the season.
yeah,
That's what I think.
I don't disagree with
I mean,
that.
maybe she'd miss one along the way, but considering she's been nominated for an Academy Award 4 times in the last 20 years, like I think enough
Mhm.
people would be like, oh, it's a Spielberg film, it's beloved, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is her time, let's give it to her. But there are some people who don't like her in the movie, so I don't know if it would have been a given.
yeah.
I still think she gets in at the Oscars. I'm not convinced about Anna de Armas, but we'll talk about that.
we could certainly talk about that. I do really like Michelle Williams in the film. It is a little bit of a unique performance, I
Mhm.
guess. I do see why it's off-putting for some audiences, but I think given the character and the psychology that is driving a lot of her choices throughout the film, it makes sense that she's as loud, for the lack of a better term, as she is at times, or as eccentric as she is at times. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword because it can be viewed as maybe melodramatic and it's capital A acting, and maybe that throws some people off. I just think the character is written that way, and so she has to play that up, and I think she does it very well. But I do understand why that doesn't work for everybody. But I think, to your point, what's really hurting her this award season is that she's in the wrong category.
Well, yeah,
And-
because really, I mean, Michelle Yeoh and Kate Blanchett are very much the stars of their movie. They're in like the whole thing. I mean, Blanchett, is there a scene of Tar that Blanchett is not in? Like,
No,
she's in
I-
like
she's-
every
yeah,
scene for 2.5
every scene.
hours. So
Yeah.
it's hard to compete with that if you're in like a third of your movie.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And for all the reasons we've already stated, this category is now open. And it's going to be really interesting to see how things shake out over the next month or so
Yeah.
with supporting actress, not only with Bassett and Carrie Condon, but who knows, maybe Stephanie Sue makes some noise, which I think is maybe a transition to talk about SAG. Maybe we could talk about that category with the SAG nominations that came out.
Stephanie got in. That was a big surprise. That was fantastic.
It was a big surprise. Hong Chow also getting in here, I thought was really great. I mean, we talked about Jamie Lee Curtis the last time that you were on, and to reiterate for anyone watching or listening that missed it, I do feel like it is a little bit of a strange performance in terms of the awards conversation. What she does for the film itself is impeccable.
Yeah.
I just don't see it as being an awards-worthy performance. That said, though, Stephanie Sue being here, Condon, Hong Chow, Bassett, love all 4 of those. And again, I say that with all the love in my heart for Jamie Lee Curtis, and I don't think she has any chance at winning. And it was fun to see her cheerleading last night at the Globes. There was a lot of that going around on social media, which was great to see. But yeah, these SAGs, if this was the 5 Oscar nominees,
Yeah, we'd be
I
pretty
think
happy.
I'd be very happy with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great when 2 actors get in from the same movie. I think Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Shu are, they're very deserving of that. But I do think now they kind of cancel each other out. I mean, I thought the
Which is
only
fair.
place
Yeah.
Curtis could win was Golden Globes. I was like prepared for it last night. Ki Hee Kwan wins, and she won for True Lies in the 90s at the Globes, which was a really cool win for an action movie. And I was like, this could be the moment. Like, this could be when she gets it. And then they went for Angela Bassett instead for a movie that didn't do as well, like overall in terms of nominations at the Globe. So I'm like, I think that's the end of the road for Curtis to win anything. Now it's kind of about, does she get the Oscar nomination? I have floated on Twitter, like, I think if there's one person who gets into Globes, Critics' Choice, SAG, and misses on Oscar morning, I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's the one who got in everywhere who might not get in at Oscars. I would love for her to get that. She's never been nominated at the Oscars. I adored her career. I made a video about her a few months ago. But I'm like, I look at that performance and everything everywhere. I'm like, is that going to get in at the Oscar?
I mean, and I agree, but maybe it is a narrative thing, and we know they love a good narrative.
They love a narrative.
if she does miss, who do you think replaces her?
At the Oscars?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of people would be happy if the nomination from Everything Everywhere and Supporting Actress was Stephanie. I think that would be really cool and deserved. I mean, I think if Jamie missed, we definitely get Angela Bassett. I think who would replace her maybe is an actress from Women Talking.
Yeah.
Which is a late breaking movie. Like it still hasn't opened up here for me yet. I think it comes out for everybody, or at least many theaters around the country on January 20th, I think. So it's kind of one of those late breaking movies that maybe come February, more and more people will see. And obviously the Oscar nominations are soon here on the 24th. So it's not that we don't have to wait that long. But I have a feeling Jessie Buckley might get in for Women Talking.
That's who I was thinking. It does feel as if the Academy is slowly starting to embrace her.
Yeah.
So of all of the performances, it does feel like she would be the one that does get in here. And that has been an interesting conversation because of all the performance, it seems as if Ben Michelle is the one getting the most awards love. And he is really good in it, but yeah, I mean, all that as an ensemble, that whole cast is excellent. And if you have to pick one apart, and maybe that's why, maybe voters are having a really hard time just isolating one out of a great ensemble. I do understand that perspective, but I mean, if you're not going to nominate Curtis, I feel like you have to go to that well. And Buckley seems like a good one.
I also think a dark horse contender. Usually we get one person in either one of the supporting categories at the Oscars who never showed up all throughout the season. I think Nina Hoss in Tar could be that person.
Love that pick. Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
That feels to me like a performance that could beat out Jamie Lee Curtis. Like be that surprise, it's not Jamie Lee for that, kind of fun performance and Everything Everywhere. It goes to the kind of the more understated emotional turn by Nina Hoss in Tar. Like I can see that happening.
That would be really interesting. I would absolutely be down for that.
That would thrill me. I loved her in that movie, and I feel like it's been weird having her not be at all of these ceremonies. I'm like, Nina Hoss, come on.
Yeah, and regardless of how that shakes out, assuming that Bassett and Condon are both in, it probably comes down to those two anyway.
Those two, probably. Yeah.
And then moving on to supporting actor, it's funny because earlier you mentioned that the two from Everything Everywhere will cancel each other out with Curtis and Sue. Here we have Gleason and Keegan, and maybe that's also a moot point because this is Hequan's award to lose at this point, right? As we mentioned earlier. So
yeah, I don't think anyone beats him at this point. Like who can beat him?
Yeah.
Like I guess Gleason for Banshees is the only one who, like, maybe he could win something along the way, but that would be just surprising to me if at SAG they said Brendan Gleeson. I'd be like, okay. At
this point, I feel like, because we can talk theory all day, but what evidence has there been for anything any other than Kwan at this point? So
yeah, he's been winning so many of the critics' prizes just from the beginning.
Yeah,
I feel like it's been his. I mean, I made a video about this category, I think in like early November, and I was like talking out loud, like, who else can win besides Kwan? He just feels like the right person at the right time.
And if the voters are paying attention to anything campaign-wise, everything he does, it is so endearing to listen to his story.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk about the process of making that movie. I just don't know how you don't vote for him after hearing that kind of stuff. Like he's killing it on the campaign trail, I guess is what I'm getting at there. All right, let's talk about outstanding performance by a female actor in a leading role. Oh boy.
This category.
So yes, Ana de Armas is nominated here for Blonde, as well as Blanchett, Viola Davis, which is very exciting, Danielle Deadwyler, who's great, and Michelle Yeoh. Okay, so 4 of these are great. One is Stirring Up the Hornet's Nest. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I like the Ana de Armas performance more than others do. I had a lot of issues with that movie. It was like a 4 or 5 out of 10 movie for me overall. I just think it's way too long and it's tonally all over the place.
Yeah,
I do think she's doing good work in it. Like she's like giving some great, like a great performance throughout many scenes. I'm like, what is this fascination we have? It's like whenever someone plays Marilyn Monroe, Michelle Williams played Marilyn Monroe in My Week with Marilyn 11 years ago. She got nominated everywhere that season for that. And it seems to be happening again here. And I'm just like, but it's weird if you look at this category. So you have The Woman King, Blonde, and Till, 3 movies in this category that really don't show up anywhere else, right? It's just in this category. Like the only, well, I mean, Tar, I guess too, huh? At SAG, it's just Tar, it's just Kate Blanchett. Like the only performance that got in this category that's in other categories is Everything Everywhere All at Once of Michelle Yeoh. So it is kind of hard to, I mean, that's one easy way to predict this category, right? The other 4 nominations are for movies that don't show up anywhere else, including ensemble and things like that, whereas Everything Everywhere gets 5 nominations, 2 in supporting actress, 1 in supporting actor. I mean, that's the one everyone's going to be watching. They're going to be watching it for this category, for that category. That's another reason I think Michelle Yeoh could win at SAG.
Yeah.
But where's Michelle Williams?
Yeah. No, and I do love. Yeah. All of the nominations for that film has been very exciting. To your point about Ana de Armas, I do agree with you. I do think that film is exploitative. I think it is tonally mishandled. I don't hate the performance either. I do struggle with the discourse, and admittedly, I have muted much of it. I've tried to stare away as much as I can because I don't want to get anywhere near that vitriol. But I have admittedly struggled with the notion that because I hate the film, I must hate the performance.
Yeah.
That to me doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that. I think Ana de Armas is very good in the film, and I think the intricacies she brings to that performance, the subtleties she brings to it at times, I think is very good. Is the film around her not supporting what she's doing? Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. And I don't disagree that the film isn't very good. But I can't get behind, I'm just going to hate everything about this film when there are objectively good things about it. But people don't want to have that conversation. I do struggle with that. I
don't know how well, especially if that performance gets in at the Oscars, I don't know how well that will stand up 10 years from now when people remember that performance. I don't know.
Well, and I think that's a good point. And that's ultimately, I think, where the conversation around Ana de Armas really should lie. It's not so much of, well, I hate that film, so I have to hate the performance. That to me feels disingenuous, but I'm certainly willing to hear people give their reasons. But I don't think it really matters because at the end of the day, the question is it
Blanchett
deserving of being in any of this? And I don't think that it is. I think you can certainly come up with other performances that are better than hers, especially because the film around her suffocates her performance by the end. So that's really where the conversation should lie. But that really isn't the conversation, and that's a little, I don't know, a little weird to me, I guess.
It is Blonde is a tough watch. It's a difficult watch. I would say of all of the big kind of contenders this year. I mean, it's 3 hours and it's got a lot of scenes where you're just like, man. And so it's kind of surprised me a little bit that she's showing up in all of that, both the Globes and now at SAG. I'm like, enough people are watching this and like saying, yes, do this performance. But I'm very happy, especially with Viola Davis for The Woman King.
Yeah,
a movie
I love that.
I feel like is losing steam. Doesn't really have a lot of love in other categories at these shows, but everybody adores Viola Davis, so that's a cool nomination.
Yeah.
And then Danielle Deadwyler needed this nomination at SAG because she missed at the Globes. She got in a Critics' Choice, but Critics' Choice, you never really know. That could just be a one-off and just get nominated there. Getting in at SAG for Till, another movie that's not really showing up in any other category. Like I was like, if she misses at SAG, that might be the end of the road for her because you're not really hearing about the movie anywhere else. So I was happy to see her get in for Till.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love that she got in here. I think she easily gives one of the best actress performances of the year. So I really do hope that she gets in. And honestly, aside from Ana de Armas, I would have no problem with the other four. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Even though at the end of the day, I still think it comes to Blanchett and Yeoh, as we talked about earlier. But
Yeah, what did someone say on Twitter today? They said all the other nominations are window decoration. Or dressing
that's kind of what it is. Speaking
like,
of,
well, I think it's a little bit more deeper than that, but
Yeah.
I understand the sentiment.
yeah. Another one of those, and this is a really fun surprise. Adam Sandler gets in for Hustle. Who saw that coming?
I have seen he has been in so many of these roundtable discussions and this and that and the other thing, and I'm like, God, he's doing all of these things. He's showing up at SAG screenings and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I always feel bad when an actor's doing that for months and months and they get nominated for nothing. I'm like, that's always weird to me. And
I know.
So it wasn't that surprising to me because it's been this weird case. Most years there's like 8 amazing Best Actor nominations fighting it out for those 5. This year we have these 4 nominations that keep popping up, and then it seems like every award ceremony there's that like surprise 5th nominee. No one can decide who gets that 5th slot. Like I was thinking maybe Diego Calva for Babylon. There's Tom Cruise. There's Paul Mescal for After Sun, who I think gets in at the Oscars.
I would love that.
Because that movie is getting a lot of buzz the last few weeks and everyone's loving it. That's starting to feel like it might be the 5th slot to me.
Well, and it's interesting too, because not only is there the film itself, the performance itself, the buzz that you're talking about, and I don't know if this is just coincidence or if someone is working heavy PR to time these things out, but the news drops that he gets the lead role in the Gladiator sequel.
Yep.
So it seems as if his career is really starting to take off. That will certainly pique the interest, I think, of others that haven't really considered the performance, or maybe they haven't even seen the film. Well, man, if he's getting into Ridley's new film, I got to go see this thing.
Yeah.
And so maybe that does kind of make a late push. And I would love nothing more. I would love nothing more. I love Colin Farrell. I gave him Best Actor at the Inception Film Awards because he is deserving and he had a career year. That said, I think his performance in After Sun, speaking of Mescal, is as good as anything Colin Farrell did all year. I think it is that good.
And I think, as you know, if enough people see it before Oscar nomination voting ends, I think that feels likeliest to me. Adam Sandler for Hustle, this is the one stop on the.
This is a one-off. Yeah, that's what my next question.
That's not happening. He's not. No, that's not going to happen at the Oscars. That would be the shocker of the morning. I don't expect that. I mean, what frustrated me a little bit was my favorite performance, male or female, of all of 2019 was Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. I thought he was amazing in that, and that was a frustrating season having him show up nowhere. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, I guess he's so good in Punch Drunk Love. I'm like, I guess we'll just never nominate Adam Sandler for anything outside Independent Spirit Award. He won, which was cool for Uncut Gems. Great speech he gave there. But I was like, I don't like, I mean, because I just thought he was dynamite in that film. And then so I'm like, I mean, I liked him in Hustle. It was a decent film. I liked it last summer. I haven't really thought about it since. I'm like, that's the movie we get him the second nomination for. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I told my wife earlier today that he was nominated for SAG, and her response was, "Didn't that movie come out 3 years ago?" Which I thought was so funny. And it does kind of feel that way. It feels like this is, partially because they shot it during the pandemic, and so this is something that's been in the works for a while now, and then it comes up during the slow drums of the summer season. And it is a good movie. I like the performance. I would have never considered it for awards, but you're right. He has been making the rounds.
Yep, that's a big part of it. He's making the rounds big time.
Absolutely. And I do love listening to him. I mentioned that Hollywood Reporter Roundtable a couple of times now. He's on that video talking with Colin Farrell and, everyone else there. So, and I do love listening to him talk about his experience making that movie, and I do think he's good in it. It's not Uncut Gems or Punch Drunk Love. It's not even Meyerowitz Story's good, but I mean, he is good in it. And look, I will never be against handing awards to Adam Sandler. I love him, especially when he's doing work like that.
Mhm.
And as I joked to you earlier on Twitter, is this a little bit of a makeup call if we're going to use sports lingo? Maybe.
That's right. That's
Could
right. You
be.
said that. Mm-hmm.
And like,
It could
and
be
that
kind of
might
a
be what
makeup
it is.
award for Uncut Gems. It might be
Yeah.
that. Partly,
That's
at
exactly
least.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
It does feel like this is, as you see in basketball all the time, they miss a call, they make it up later. This has that same kind of vibe to it. So maybe that's what but at the same time, to your point, this is likely a one.
Yeah.
one
He
off
gets to
for
go
him.
to that SAG ceremony in February. Just relax. He doesn't have to write a speech.
Just
Like, he
have
can
fun. Just
have
be
a good
there,
night.
hang out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What should we talk about next? You want to talk about ensemble? Should we talk about ensemble?
the big ensemble prize.
Yeah, so you got Babylon, Banshees, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fablemans, and Women Talking. Finally, Women Talking getting some love.
Yeah.
And I do kind of understand it. I noted it earlier that as an ensemble, it does feel as if it is like one performative entity with the verbal exchanges, the sparring that's going on. Like, I do understand the notion if someone came on here and argued like they're all equally great. I don't know if one elevates themselves above another. I kind of get it because everyone in the film is excellent. So like as an ensemble nomination, I do get it. Does that justify just completely ignoring it at all of these other shows? I don't know about that. It's a double-edged sword in that regard. But I kind of understand the thinking. So at least it's here. If it missed ensemble, it'd be a different conversation. we would have to get our pitchforks out at that point.
Yeah, that's what I've heard for the last few weeks of like, it's kind of hard to nominate Women Talking in individual categories because it is hard to like decide which one do we nominate. Like I haven't seen the film yet. I kind of get behind Jessie Buckley just because she was nominated last year for The Lost Daughter. And I've read that she's great in it, so that feels like the right nomination to me, but I still think she gets in on Oscar nominations morning. That's what I'm sensing.
Yeah.
But that'd be two in a row.
I love Jessie Buckley. I've been championing her since, 2017, 2018. She was in a little film called Beast, I believe it is.
Okay.
And that was the first time that I had seen her. And at that time, she hadn't really done much, especially prominent work. And I fell in love with that performance. I thought she was so good. She actually made Mind Session Film Awards for Best Actress that year for that film, I believe. And then the next year, she comes out with another striking performance in what was the country music video or film that she did? I can't remember. Well, she stars as the country singer.
Like she's the lead?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Was
this
it
is not coming to mind? I don't know if I saw it.
So, something Rose, Wild Rose. I can't remember. I can't remember.
She's very talented.
Anyway, she was great in that film, and that film got much more like that was more in the mainstream. That was getting some awards love near the end of the year. Not quite as much, but people were talking about her more. And then she's in The Lost Daughter, and she comes out and all these other things. And then eventually the Academy starts to embrace her. So
great in Men too. I loved her in Men earlier this year or last year.
Yeah. I thought she was very good. Again, say what you will about the film. Her performance is really great. And yes, Wild Rose is the name.
Wild Rose. I didn't see that.
That film. Really great. Loved her in that film. The music there is very good. So like slowly over the years, she's really started to snowball, and it's been fun to kind of see that journey, I guess, over the last 5 years or so. And now she's at a point where, I think especially the Academy is starting to take notice. And I don't think it's going to be before long where she's, one of those actresses that's nominated, not every year, but maybe somewhat consistently.
Yeah. But I do think it's going to be hard for either Women Talking or Babylon to win Best Ensemble without at least one individual nomination. I mean, it happens. Like it happened for Black Panther. I believe Black Panther didn't get any individual nominations and it won Best Ensemble. It happens.
Mhm.
Parasite too, right? I don't think Parasite got an individual nomination at SAG, but then it won
Yeah.
Ensemble. So it happens.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
Babylon kind of makes sense. It's a great ensemble. There's so many great actors in that. We didn't even mention. I mean, Margot Robbie for
Yeah.
a while seemed like she was going to get into Best Actress everywhere. We didn't even talk about her for Best Actress for Babylon. I loved that movie more than many, and she's like amazing in Babylon. She's got, especially in that first half, she's got some really terrific scenes in that. So
Yeah.
you could award it to Babylon for that, but I think if you try to think about it too hard, you could make sense of like, well, all 5 of these movies have a chance. I think that Stephanie Hsu nomination, surprise nomination, supporting actress, that tells me I'm going to go with Everything Everywhere All at Once for ensemble. That's what I think is going to win.
I mean, yeah, to your point, I mean, the whole cast is here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Banshees is also a lot of those guys are here as well. So I could see it. But yeah, you'd think it'd have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
If it's not Everything, it's Banshees.
I just feel like when it comes to the actors, there's going to be so much love for Jamie Lee Curtis, Michelle Yeoh, and Ki Hee Kwan. There, you know, it might win lead actress and supporting actor at SAG too. It feels like that's the movie that'll win ensemble to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, that absolutely makes the most sense. Babylon is really fun, and I do like that movie quite a bit. And it does seem as if there's a ton of love for Margot Robbie. So you're right. We didn't really mention her in the best.
Like
actress
Margot
conversation
Robbie,
earlier.
I don't think she's out of the best actress conversation at
Well,
the Oscars. I don't think that's done yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. And again, I don't have the stats or the analysis that someone like you or Ryan would. But I don't think Ana de Armas is going to. I say that, and you'll be able to use this clip and make me look foolish.
She might,
because she might get it. I guess
I don't know.
Let me rephrase and say, I won't be surprised if she misses and insert Margot Robbie in her place with these other 4. Like,
I think
that
if
wouldn't
Michelle
surprise me.
Williams stays in lead, I think Michelle Williams gets in
Or
before
Michelle
Margot
Williams.
Robbie does. Because I think that
because of the
Fablemans
Fablemans
will
and
be
people love it. Yeah.
Oscar nominations. Like, I feel like more people will be voting for the Fablemans in a lot of categories. I think Williams is above Robbie. So it's like, but then putting in Williams and Robbie and pushing out like Viola Davis and Daniel Deadweiler, that's not a good look. We don't want that. So it's like, that's a tricky category. There's like 7-8 women really competing for those 5 slots. And it's still kind of up in the air for Oscar.
Or if anyone listening to this, if you're an Academy voter, you could substitute Ana de Armas and Margot Robbie and Michelle Williams for Mia Goth. How about that?
God.
How about that as an idea?
Yeah, I spent many months in late 2018, early 2019 thinking, okay. Toni Collette, she missed at SAG for Hereditary. She missed at Golden Globes. But I was like, that performance is so good. She's got to get in at the and then nothing.
And then nothing.
So I think for me, Mia Goth is not on the level of Toni Collette and Hereditary, but it's that like genre pick of 2022 that I would put into Best Actress. I loved her in that. She did equally terrific work in X earlier in the year. It's like a great combo of movies. She's so good. She would be in my 5, but I just don't. They don't go for genre films very often. You know?
And look,
Not
if
since
you're
Misery,
exactly, I mean,
it's been a
you're
while.
right. The Academy never goes for genre, or rarely do
Very
they ever
rarely.
go for genre. And then also with that kind of performance, a very loud, bombastic performance that they typically go for. Those are the kind of capital A acting performances they embrace. And they said, no, thank you. Like, we don't need any of, like, so they're definitely not going to take Mia Goth from a horror film where so much of her performance is quiet and internalized. Like, of course they're not going to go for that. So it's a dream, but I wanted to present it in case, maybe I could change someone's mind. Who knows?
Like, even Toni Collette was able to make it in for Hereditary at Critics' Choice in 2019. She made it in Critics' Choice. You got that one. Mia Goth couldn't even get in at Critics' Choice. So I was like, okay, that's over. That's not good.
Yeah. Real quick, because I do want to talk about the DGA But first, I don't want to overlook stunt ensemble
Okay.
because we as an industry, Hollywood needs to embrace stunt performances much more, recognize that broadly speaking. So Avatar, The Batman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Top Gun Maverick, The Woman King, all really good nominations. I don't know if I have an opinion. I really like them all. I won't. I don't know if I'll be swayed one way or another depending on who wins here. But I at least wanted to bring it up and at least recognize these stunts.
Yeah, there's not a bad one in the bunch there. I mean, I might vote The Woman King. I really loved that movie, and I would love it to just win something along the road here, and has some amazing action scenes in that. So Woman King would be a cool win there.
Yeah, I mean, I could make a case for all of these, really. I mean, if I had a preference, it might be Top Gun Maverick, simply because those actors are in jets flying at, Mach 2 and pulling 4 and 5 Gs, maybe even more in some of those maneuvers. I mean, that's something.
But but it's all Tom Cruise though, so we should be giving it to Tom.
But so I could see it because not just of the practicality of it, but the extreme practicality of that film. But to your point, The Woman King, love the choreograph, love the action, all of the stunt work there is great. If not those two, The Batman has some really great stuff as well. And Avatar: The Way of Water is interesting because these stunt performers and these actors are underwater for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And I could never do that in a million years. So that's noteworthy to someone like me. So,
horrifying. I couldn't imagine. I don't really like being under the water. So I like when you hear you heard that story of Kate Winslet when she hold her breath for 7 minutes or something. I'm like,
unbelievable.
like what?
Yeah. Like I
couldn't
heard,
do it.
Like Tom Cruise had said that he did it for one of the Mission Impossible movies, last decade. And you're like, okay, Tom Cruise learning to do that for 7 minutes, understandable. Kate Winslet telling you that is a different story. Like that is incredible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you can make a case for all of these films. It seems as if Top Gun is going to win that, but I won't be angry one way or another.
You're probably right. Yeah, the more I think about it, you're probably right. It probably goes to Top Gun.
Yeah. But all of them, I think, are worthy in their own way. All right, real quick, let's talk about the DGA nominations.
DGA.
So for narrative feature, we have the Daniels, Todd Field, Martin McDonagh, Steven Spielberg, and Joseph Kosinski. We mentioned earlier, Kosinski's probably the one out at the Oscars.
Yeah.
But in the perspective of DGA, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great lineup. I looked this morning and I was like, I have really nothing to say about this. This is just like, that's solid. I mean, the main thing is, we say it every year, and I'm always looking for, I wish there was more representation. I wish we had like a female director in there. Like the director of Woman King is terrific. And then Sarah Polley for Women Talking. Like, I always like let's get a little bit of diversity, or like, a woman in there. But those are 5 terrific films. You can't really, you can't really say one of those doesn't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
And I do like that Top Gun Maverick pick, because that director really took something that could have just been a junky sequel and turned it into this terrific movie that everybody loves. So that's saying something for him.
I mean, I understand the nomination, and I do really like what he's doing with Top Gun Maverick, Kosinski, in terms of his direction. I will say though, if we had to replace him with another guy, my vote would probably be Edward Berger for All Quiet on the Western Front. And if the Oscars are going to fill in one of these with an international director, as you mentioned earlier, that would probably be my vote. Or, and this will never happen, but my others would be Robert Eggers for The Northman, because that is also one of the best directed movies of the year that everyone has forgotten about. But holy crap, does he direct the hell out of that film. But Edward Berger, I think, has a legit chance. Will he get in? Will it be Park Chan-wook? Again, that's up for debate, as we talked about earlier. But
I would count out the director of Decision to Leave to Wook. That would be I like. There's a lot of love for him. Like I could see that happening too.
Yeah. No,
As a surprise.
absolutely. Yeah, for all the reasons I noted earlier. Now, to your point about, hey, should we, let's say, put in a female director? Now, Sarah Polley is an obvious choice because women talking is in the conversation. It's very likely or very possible anyway that she gets in for screenplay.
Yeah.
Should she be in the conversation for director? Absolutely. I do think she should be in the conversation. But if it's not going to be her, and this is a little bit of a transition to the first time narrative feature film category, and I have championed her since I have seen this film, and I will continue forever to champion. As much as I love Goat Spielberg, he's going to likely win another Oscar for Best Director, and I'll be very happy. I love The Fabelmans, and I'm going to be thrilled for Spielberg. But Charlotte Wells gave the best direction of 2022.
Okay.
I think she is incredible. She should win this category for first time feature. And if you're going to replace Kaczynski and you're going to look at female directors, man, that's who I'd put in a heartbeat.
Be an awesome nomination on Oscar morning. That would be really cool.
Yeah, it would be very surprising, very cool, very well deserved. It is. The sophistication of that film I can't believe that's a first time feature. Like it is unbelievable. And not to get too much into the film here, but I talked about this quite a bit in our review on the show and on the award show this last week. Aftersun, I think, has a lot of similarities to The Fabelmans. It is very similar in how it is art and family converging and how art becomes a coping process for its central figure. So there are elements to it that I think will speak to the Academy in the same way The Fabelmans are with Spielberg, but it's an unknown name. It's this little film, from overseas. And, I don't know how much of a possibility, but I do think if you separate just all of the campaigning and all of the marketing and all of these little periphery things that go into, how the voters find out about these films. Man, I just think she gives one of the best directing efforts of the year.
I don't think necessarily those other four are locks. Like Martin McDonagh missed for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri in Best Director. So it's not 100%, I would say, he gets in for Banshees. It's a pretty quiet film.
Yeah.
Like he could miss. I think he gets in this time because there's so much love for that movie.
And
but
I think it's a better directed movie.
I wouldn't be shocked if McDonagh missed. I think Spielberg and the Daniels absolutely get in. Todd Field gets in. I think he's a beloved figure in the industry, and Tar is just extraordinary. I think he makes it. I mean, there's Baz Luhrmann. Baz Luhrmann has never been nominated for Best Director.
And look, I love Baz. I would not.
It's possible.
Like, selfishly speaking, I wouldn't be opposed. But I think if you're going to look outside of the conventional, I think it's got to be Charlotte Wells. Yeah,
Charlotte Wells. That would be cool. I would love that.
Yeah, I think that would be. Man, I would faint. I think I don't know if I could handle. I process that kind of information. But that would be awesome. We shall see. All right. Well, as we wind down here, do you have any final thoughts on anything regarding DGA, SAG, or the Golden Globes that took place last night?
Yeah, this is a really exciting year. Some years, like we had that year, what was it, early 2020, where we had 4 people in the acting categories just winning everything at every ceremony. It gets very dull. Yeah, sure. I like when we have a nice mix like we're having this season. I'm just hoping for Michelle Yeoh. Yeoh at the Oscars. She's my pick this season. I love her.
I love it as well. And, the one thing that I talked about on the award show that I don't believe I talked about the last time you and I got together, because I did revisit that film recently. That performance is more introspective than I think people remember. It is a very internalized performance. So it feels like Blanchett has a more Oscar-y kind of feel to it. But there is the narrative of it, and that whole film is so, speaking of everything, is so bombastic and out there and strange and weird and awesome that I think people can overlook it because it's Michelle Yeoh and she's doing some of her best work. And
Yeah.
I'm with
absolutely.
you though. I'm cheering her on. Let's go.
Yes. Let's do it.
All right. Well, real quick, where can people find you on social media? Where can we find your work?
So find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Brian Rowe, Mr. Brian Rowe. You can find my YouTube videos, Brian Rowe Video, and my podcast is called Film at 50. We celebrate films released 50 years ago.
Yeah, be sure to go and check it out because I'm going to be on it very soon. So subscribe and stay tuned. But yeah, go and follow Brian on social media as well. Really great follow. Thanks for being here, good sir. Always
Thank you.
a pleasure talking awards with you. And we will see you all next time on the In Session Film Podcast. Let's go, yo! Let's go, yo! Let's go, yo!